The most expensive-looking homes I've ever entered have nothing in common when it comes to budget, but they share details that most homeowners completely overlook during a renovation. You'd be awesome if you liked this video. 1. Flooring determines the entire feel. I have walked through many recently renovated homes where the owners invested heavily in furniture, yet the space still lacked a high-end feel. When I look down at the floor, the answer is usually right there. Glossy, small-grain, faux wood flooring, or small tiles with numerous grout lines, or overly artificial cool gray tones. It's not that the furniture is bad, it's just that the foundation underneath is dragging the entire space down in a way that no sofa can compensate for. Flooring is a surface that appears continuously throughout every space, and the human eye perceives it from nearly every angle in the house, even when not actively looking at it. That is why low-quality flooring breaks the feeling of luxury faster than any other detail. Conversely, the right floor can elevate the entire home, even if the furniture is quite simple. High-end homes today almost all lean toward wide plank flooring, warm natural tones, and a slight matte finish. The wider the plank, the fewer seams the space has, making the room look significantly more open and expensive. It is the same with tile. Large formats with thin grout lines always create a more modern and sophisticated feel than small tile styles with many grout lines. If the budget isn't there to replace the floors, a properly sized area rug is the most effective upgrade. Rugs that are too small make the furniture look like it's floating and visually fragment the space. A rug large enough so that at least the front legs of the sofa and chairs sit on the surface will pull the entire seating area into a unified block. There is a floor-to-ceiling architectural detail that automatically makes a home feel taller, wider, and more expensive, yet 90% of homeowners cannot explain why. 2. Synchronize interior door heights. Last year, I consulted on a project where the homeowner spent a lot of money on furniture, but the space still lacked stature despite nearly 10-foot ceilings. Looking closely, I discovered the interior doors were only the standard 6 feet 8 inches, leaving a floating wall gap of up to 15 inches above. This exact gap was cutting off the visual flow and making the ceiling feel significantly lower than it actually was. The solution here is to pull the entire interior door system up to the ceiling. When a door runs straight from floor to ceiling without a gap, the human eye reads the entire height of the room as one continuous line instead of being chopped at the old height. This effect helps the space automatically feel taller and airier and gives it clear architectural intent without changing any other elements. In terms of construction, floor-to-ceiling doors are larger and heavier, so it is mandatory to use anti-warp solid cores and high-load concealed hinges. The door surface should be painted in the same color code and sheen as the surrounding walls, helping the door blend into a seamless flat plane with the wall when closed, instead of standing out as a disjointed detail. If you are planning a renovation, this is an investment that should be prioritized over furniture. Replacing door slabs can be done at any time, but it becomes much more expensive and complicated if performed after the drywall and paint are finished. 3. Ceiling details. Painting the ceiling about 2 shades darker than the walls is the first piece of advice I give when homeowners want a room to have depth without changing the furniture. The initial reaction is almost always skepticism, as most people are taught that white ceilings make a room look taller. But when the ceiling and walls are the same flat white, the space loses visual depth and looks more like a paint can than a purposeful design. This subtle difference in tone creates a delicate depth, especially noticeable in the evening under warm lighting. The reason most homeowners completely ignore the ceiling is because it's out of natural eye level. But that's precisely why it subtly affects the overall feel of the room. High-end spaces rarely treat the ceiling as a flat white surface to be painted and then forgotten. They treat it as the room's fifth wall. For homes with ceilings 9 to 10 feet high, thin ceiling moldings or moderately sized false beams can be added to enhance the architectural feel without making the ceiling feel heavy. It's important to keep everything in proportion to the actual height. Molding that's too thick in a room with low ceilings will have the opposite effect and make the space feel cramped instead of open. An important practical note is that if the house was built before 1980 and has old-style textured ceilings, have the materials inspected by a professional before attempting to scrape them off yourself, as some older structures may contain asbestos in the plaster. This detail running around the room is the first thing designers look at to distinguish between builder-grade and high-end homes, even though most homeowners overlook it. 4. Thick trim and molding. Not many people notice this when walking into a home, but the brain does. I often perform a small test by taking a photo of a client's baseboards and placing it next to the baseboards of a high-end home. The difference in the thickness of the baseboard molding is always the first thing they recognize, and once seen, they cannot stop noticing it everywhere in the house. Common builder-grade homes only use baseboards around 2 to 3 inches to save costs, while luxury spaces often increase this to about 5 to 7 inches. This small change alone is enough to give the entire perimeter of the room clearer visual weight. helping the wall appearance no longer feel abruptly cut off, but instead begin to have synchronized architectural depth. Interestingly, you don't need elaborate classical-style molding to create that effect. Flat molding styles with minimalist lines still provide a high-end feel if the scale is large enough, proving that luxury often lies not in complex detail, but in whether everything is in the right proportion. If you want a quick upgrade, start with the entryway or living room first, as these are the places where the human eye most easily perceives the home's level of finish. Keep in mind that the higher the ceiling and the larger the space, the more out-of-proportion small molding looks, while properly scaled molding always creates a sense of more deliberate architectural investment, even if the furniture is simple. 5. Built-ins and custom storage. A tip I always share with homeowners who want built-ins but worry about cost is that you can absolutely combine stock cabinets with crown molding, baseboards, and paneling painted the same color. When the gaps are handled neatly, the human eye will read them as true, expensive custom cabinetry. The reason built-ins create a high-end architectural feel that loose furniture never can is that they eliminate the gaps between furniture and walls. Loose furniture always feels like it can be moved at any time, while built-ins provide the exact opposite effect. The space looks like it was born specifically for your life. The value lies in the finishing details, not the cabinet itself. A good set of hardware, filler panels to close gaps, and pulling the cabinets all the way to the ceiling always makes the whole look significantly more luxurious than leaving cabinets floating with gaps between the ceiling and surrounding walls. Finally, built-ins work best when solving a practical need like a bookshelf, a hidden toy nook, or a coffee station. These smart storage solutions always create a sense of clear intent, looking as though they always belonged in your home from the start. Once the storage is perfect, there is a detail you touch every day that doesn't show up in photos but secretly confirms the home's value through its weight. 6. Doors with real weight. There are details in your home that you touch every day, yet your brain silently evaluates them even when you're not consciously paying attention. Doors are one of them. I realized this most clearly when showing clients 2 adjacent houses in the same area with similar sizes and interior designs. But one house felt noticeably more solid and upscale from the moment you stepped into the first bedroom. The difference wasn't the paint color or the wood flooring. It was the sound and weight of the door closing. The hollow doors common in pre-built houses are very light, sound hollow, and feel flimsy each time they're used. The brain registers all of that through the sound, vibration, and weight of the doorknob, even though the eyes don't immediately notice. Solid doors offer a completely different experience. They're heavier, close more securely, and most importantly, create a noticeably quieter space. The sound of the door closing alone is enough to make the house feel more solidly built. You don't need to replace all the doors to achieve this effect. Many homeowners save a significant amount of money by sourcing old solid doors from renovation projects. Simply choosing a simple, structurally sound design and repainting it to match existing moldings or walls often yields results that far exceed the cost. If the budget is limited, prioritize the most frequently used or visible doors, such as the front door, master bedroom door, or doors directly facing the living room. These are the locations that create the strongest sense of quality for the entire house. 7. Layered lighting. I have a simple test I often use when advising homeowners on lighting. In the evening, turn off all the ceiling lights and only turn on the remaining supplementary light sources in the room. If the space still feels warm and comfortable, the lighting system is working correctly. If the room immediately becomes dark and lacks depth, the problem isn't the number of lights, but that all the lighting is relying on a single source. This type of lighting with just a single light fixture in the center of the ceiling spreads across the entire room with the same intensity. There's no depth, no focal point, and no warm feeling that high-end homes usually have. Expensive-looking spaces layer lighting according to function. Task lights under the kitchen cabinets illuminate the countertop where work is needed instead of casting shadows on your hands while cooking. Floor lamps in the corner of the living room soften the space in the evening. Small picture lights create a sense of purposeful arrangement. What really makes the difference isn't expensive lights, but color temperature. Cold white light makes the house look more like an office than a place to relax. Switching to warm light from 2700 Kelvin to 3000 Kelvin makes the wood tones deeper, the stone veins more beautiful, and the whole room instantly more pleasant without changing any furniture. Don't try to make every corner of the house equally bright. A beautiful home always has areas of light and shadow and subtle transitions between them. It is this contrast that creates visual depth that the human eye associates with luxury. Next is the reason I usually look at the kitchen before looking at anything else when evaluating a home. And the mistake I see there often cannot be fixed by buying more things. 8. Synchronized metal finishes. Last year, I consulted for a homeowner who had just renovated a fairly beautiful kitchen, yet the overall feel was still disjointed for no clear reason. Good cabinets, beautiful countertops, decent lighting. But when I looked closely at every metal detail, the answer appeared immediately. A polished nickel kitchen faucet, deep gold brass cabinet pulls, and a shiny chrome ceiling light. None of them were ugly individually, but placed together in one space, they pulled the eye in many directions at once, and the overall look lost the necessary sophistication. High-end spaces usually revolve around only one or two main metal tones throughout the entire house. Matte black is the safest choice today because it creates strong contrast with light-colored cabinets and maintains a clean feel long-term. Satin brass or brushed bronze creates a significantly warmer effect and more depth than polished metal tones, especially under evening lights. A common mistake I see even when homeowners have tried to synchronize. They choose the same metal tone for cabinet pulls and the kitchen faucet, but forget the ceiling lights, bathroom door handles, and toilet paper holders. The kitchen looks synchronized, but the rest of the house remains disjointed. Synchronization needs to run through every space, not just individual rooms. 9. Curtains hung high and touching the floor. A homeowner once called me after completely redoing her living room furniture but still feeling something was missing. I looked at the photo she sent and immediately realized it. The curtains were hanging directly above the window frame, ending about 4 inches from the floor. The new furniture was beautiful, but the curtains were dividing the wall into short sections and making the room look significantly lower than it actually was. I suggested she simply move the curtain rod closer to the ceiling and replace it with floor-length curtains. That change cost less than a small piece of furniture, but the result transformed the entire feel of the room. The vertical line from ceiling to floor instantly makes the space look taller and more luxurious. This is the least expensive change on this list, but it creates the quickest visual impact. Beautiful curtains in high-end homes are usually not flashy. They are simple, with soft fabrics and neutral colors. What makes the difference is the proportion and fullness of the fabric. Curtains that are too narrow or taut instantly make the window look shallower. Curtains that are sufficiently full create a soft, natural feel as light passes through. Avoid letting the curtain ends dangle just a few inches from the floor. That small gap often detracts from the overall sense of completeness that luxurious spaces possess. I have seen beautiful kitchens lose their high-end feel because of a single decision made in a showroom. The next part explains exactly that. 10. Natural material countertops. I have seen the same scenario repeat enough times to say it bluntly. A homeowner enters a showroom, sees a countertop glowing under artificial spotlights, thinks it's beautiful, and picks it immediately. 6 months later, they call back saying almost the exact same thing. Looking at the countertop all day is tiring, and I can never wipe away all the fingerprints. The problem isn't the material quality. The problem is that a showroom is not a real living environment, and artificial lights hide many things that only daily life reveals. Expensive-looking kitchens go the opposite direction. Countertop edges are cut straight or with only a very slight eased edge. Matte surfaces instead of glossy. Light natural veining instead of dense patterns. Those choices aren't flashy in a showroom, but they are what make a homeowner still love their kitchen years later because they don't show fingerprints, don't cause eye fatigue, and look better over time instead of degrading over time. If there isn't enough budget to replace everything, prioritize the kitchen island or the main countertop first. This is the most visible location and has the largest visual impact. Don't choose countertop edges with elaborate decorative details, because the simpler the cuts, the longer the countertop maintains its luxury look, instead of quickly becoming tied to a specific design era. 11. Art and decor with breathing room. A homeowner once showed me photos of her living room and asked why the space looked cluttered, despite each item being beautiful. I counted 17 decorative items on 3 flat surfaces in the same view. None of them were bad. But when they all appear at once, the brain doesn't know where to focus, and the entire space feels noisy even though the room is otherwise completely silent. High-end spaces rarely try to fill every empty space. They allow the room to have a rhythm. Instead of displaying many small framed pictures on a large wall, they often choose one piece large enough to be the focal point of the entire space. When a painting has enough space around it, the eye automatically focuses on its color and proportions instead of being distracted. The same applies to decorative shelves. Beautiful shelves don't necessarily have to be full. Just a few carefully selected items of varying heights and materials often create a more sophisticated feel than a shelf completely covered with items. If you want a quick upgrade without spending extra money, try removing about 30% of the decorations from the main areas of your home first, then see the results. The outcome is often more surprising than any new items you might buy. 12. Harmonious color palette. The biggest difference between a meticulously designed home and one that looks like a room-by-room renovation isn't usually in the interior design. It's in the paint colors. It's not that high-end homes use more exclusive colors, but rather that they create a visual connection throughout the entire space. When moving from room to room, the eye doesn't constantly adjust, and the home feels more unified and larger than it actually is. High-end spaces often revolve around a very controlled color palette. Instead of trying to differentiate each area, they use similar tones to create subtle depth. The best-performing neutral colors all have one thing in common. They don't lean too heavily in any one direction. Not too yellow, not too gray, not too cool. Before deciding, test color samples at least 3 different times of day because colors that look warm in the morning can turn cool and bluish in the afternoon as the light changes angle. If you need a specific starting point, Benjamin Moore's Simply White, Sherwin-Williams Alabaster, and Faro and Balcorn Fourth White all meet that principle. The most important thing isn't choosing a color, but keeping the entire house within the same color scheme. When the color palette is sufficiently tranquil, the interior and lighting have a greater chance to stand out instead of competing with the paint color. The final part of this list doesn't cost a single cent, but is the thing that ruins a high-end feel faster than any other detail if overlooked every day. 13. Eliminate visual clutter. When every horizontal surface in a home is crammed with items, even the most expensive details lose their impact. Marble no longer stands out. Light loses its depth. Custom-built cabinets begin to sink into visual chaos. The brain, when looking at an overcrowded space, feels fatigued in a way that's hard to explain but is very clear when compared to a space with breathing room. High-end homes don't necessarily have fewer items. They just have more control over what's allowed to be visible. Kitchen countertops aren't cluttered with appliances because they're all hidden behind cabinet doors when not in use. Coffee tables aren't overflowing with magazines and TV remotes because they have their own storage. Entrances aren't strewn with shoes and bags because there are hooks and drawers designed specifically for that purpose. If you want your home to look instantly more sophisticated without spending extra money, start with the horizontal surfaces: kitchen countertops, coffee tables, bedside tables, and entryways. These are the places where clutter appears fastest and are also the first things people notice when entering any space. A tidy house always looks more expensive than the same house when it's cluttered, no matter how expensive the interior furnishings are.